Welcome everyone to the 2019 Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm really happy to introduce Lynea Gillen. She's our next guest. She's the founder of Yoga Calm for Children, which is a pre-K to 12 program that's all over the world in 18 countries and has helped over 250,000 children, which is really amazing. It's used in schools, clinics, hospitals, and different organizations. And she's also the author of several books, the Mindful Moment Cards, a coloring book for grief and loss, which is really important, and also the book Good People Everywhere, which is a really, I've read this story before, it's a really lovely children's storybook about the good in people and how they're helping all over the world. So we'll hear more about that later. So welcome, Lynea.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks. So you've been working for kids, with kids for many, many years of all ages. And what have you noticed that's changed in this time period?
Yeah, it's true. I have been working with children since 1974, actually.
Wow.
I started in preschool. I was a 3 and 4-year-old preschool teacher, and then I was a kindergarten teacher. So yeah, I've seen a lot of changes, an increase in social emotional needs. Family structure has changed a lot, and that's changed the child's lives a lot. The onset of technology and what that's doing to children's nervous systems. I think there's a lot happening with children's nervous systems. And people are just really busy. And I think lives are really busy. Compared to when I grew up, there's just a lot less time to run around and be relaxed and play outdoors. And I see a lot more children being inside, being on technology a lot more, and less siblings. I've noticed that too. A lot more children that are only children. A lot more special needs children. That started to happen about, 10 years into my career. I really saw an increase. And actually, our Yoga Calm program started when our school put 2 behavior classrooms in our building because we were getting so many special needs children. And I think there are a lot of questions about that. And there are a lot of answers, and we don't have time to go into that. But those are some of the things I've seen change quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a huge range of things, isn't it? And I know, personally, technology for me is really a huge one.
Yes.
Just changing. I remember when I was a kid running outside, you stayed outside till your mom called you in for dinner when it was dark, and you had no concept of like what time it was or anything. You just had fun, and then it's really different for my own kids, and we have to really make an effort to kind of get them away from that technology and let them have other experiences. So
yeah, it's one of the things that I have a private practice, and it's one of the things every parent wants to discuss. How do I manage the technology piece? It's just a new problem for us, and we'll figure it out, but we're really in the throes of it right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So tell us how you teach preschoolers mindfulness and yoga and social emotional skills. What kind of things do you do?
Well, I started out, my preschool job was at a day home, which are Catholic nuns actually. And we were in that school, it was called a home. We were asked to do non-denominational spiritual practices with the children. And that was sort of the seed that started some of my awareness about how really young children can develop these practices of kindness and compassion and quiet. And I think that that's one of the most important things is the pacing, creating a classroom and creating in ourselves a sense of pacing that is in rhythm with nature and in rhythm with children's needs at that age. Creating an environment, first of all, creating an environment that is spacious and comforting and lower lighting a little bit, not such bright lighting. places where they can relax, and particularly since now children can spend many, many hours in preschool, creating a home-like experience. And I know that doesn't sound like mindfulness in a way, but the environment expresses a lot, and it can be that kind of quiet the children can feel in their own bodies. So that's the first piece. And then also to begin to practice ourselves, to learn to breathe and slow down and keep our own center. Even if we don't have a regular practice, just a few breaths before we teach, paying attention to what we listen to. One of the things that happened for me when I used to commute for an hour, and I would listen to the news, and I would get to school agitated. And I realized that's not a good use of my hour-long commute. I started doing practices and listening to things that were soothing and inspirational for me in the morning, and I came to school in a different space than I did when I was watching the news. So really paying attention to what you take in. One of the things that they say in yoga is that everything is food. What you eat, what you listen to, what you see, what you hear, all of that is food. So the environment is a big part of that. So that's the first piece. And then we use the same curriculum that we use for all of the ages, but we just bring it way down and keep it really simple. We do the breathing ball, the Hoverman sphere, which I didn't bring, but it's a ball that, opens and closes. And I love it because, what was that?
That I've got one somewhere over here.
Oh, good. I meant to bring one down, but it opens and closes. And the thing I love about that is it's really visual. So the kids' bodies can respond to it. I think one of the things we have to think about when we're working with preschool children is we're really working more with the bodies, getting their little bodies to understand and feel this sense of rhythm and safety and calm, and that they can have a little bit of control over it, So we do the breathing ball. We do big pinwheels where they can slowly blow the pinwheel. I didn't have much luck with bubbles. I found them very distracting. We can pretend we blow bubbles. That's a nice way to do it. And then things like putting things on their belly. We have a bear. I should have brought some of my props. I didn't think about it. But we have a wonderful bear that when you put your hand in the bear and you lift your hand up and down, the bear's belly breathes nice and slow, and it's soft, so they can put their hands on the bear and they can feel that, and that's another really wonderful practice. And then we keep it really, really simple. A simple routine, often a simple sun salutation. They're pretty capable of doing a simple routine, and keep it 10 minutes at the most, and then a little quiet time at the end with the story. So we use the same structure as a regular yoga class, where we do a little breathing at the beginning, we do a little practice, and then we do a little story at the end. So they're starting to get that rhythm of what a yoga class feels like. And so those are some of the things we do.
Right. Wow, I want to attend. Sounds amazing. I love that it's all very, developmentally appropriate, and the short timings, and I'm sure the kids love all the props and things that you bring in as well. So can you tell us a little bit about, what we were talking about before? There's all this kind of new stress that's coming into children's lives and parents' lives, and this kind of busyness. And that's really affecting people, adults and children's nervous system. So what do you tell parents about helping their children to kind of get those things under control?
Well, first of all, trying to put it into their everyday life, because I know parents are really busy. And one of the things that I think happens sometimes is we say, oh, you need to practice this and practice that, and their lives are already so overwhelming. They're working full time. Sometimes both parents are. They've got little children at home. They've got the bedtime routine, and adding one more thing is just really difficult. So wherever they can add just a few things, like before dinner. That's one of the things we started. I have a granddaughter. She's 8 Friday. And that's one of the ways we started practicing, and it's just to do the breathing before we eat, and adding it there, or doing it right before bed. And some of the relaxation stories that we use are really good for bedtime. We do imaginary stories where we have them shut their eyes and imagine something, like, for instance, with my granddaughter. So I'm using the things I've taught with my own granddaughter. And she was, of course, Frozen. So we had a whole story, and she got to tell me what would be in the story. And we would go into the imaginary world together. And I could weave in some of the mindfulness practices into the story. Like, we see Elsa at her ice castle, and Anna is really upset. I wonder what we could do to help Anna, and then let her share in the story. So we're entering the story together, and we keep the pacing really calm and slow. And I begin to enter her inner world. I think one of the things we're really doing is helping children and parents to develop an inner world together, an inner symbolism too, a language where we can talk about not just what happens on the outer world, but things that are happening internally, and taking small moments where we share stories, share breath, do some relaxation, demonstrate that we do relaxation. Well, I'm going to do a little relaxation right now because I'm noticing that my body has a bit of a storm in it right now. We call it storms instead of anger, because I feel like emotions are like storms. They come on, and then they cause a lot of trouble, and then they pass. Right. And I think at that age, it's nice to call them storms because it's less of a judgment, like angry. And sometimes we don't get the right emotion, you know. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's sorrow. It's like, oh, your body's having a little bit of a storm. Let's see what we can do to help that storm pass. Move that storm through in a way that is, you know, less uncomfortable.
I love that. That's a great way for kids to understand and imagine as well, I think. So you've been working at this for so many years, and, you know, all over the world. And we have a lot of new teachers that are on our webinar, and they feel, you know, sometimes I think teachers feel like, oh, this is another thing I have to, I have to do, and I'm already so overwhelmed. And what could you just give some advice to teachers watching about how they can incorporate these things in their classroom, and then maybe what they would expect to see if they do?
Absolutely. There's two things I want to say. First, I want to say that sometimes we apply mindfulness in yoga when we really need to move the children. So I think it's important to think of releasing and soothing. Sometimes we do the soothing and the children aren't really there. Their nervous systems are still really agitated from whatever, from the morning or from something at home or from, you know, life in general. There's a lot of agitation right now in the culture. And so first making sure that when you feel, I always, when I was a kindergarten teacher, I used to feel like the room is starting to do this. Do you understand what I mean? It's like, okay, I can either try to calm them down or I can get them outside and run for 5 minutes and then come in. And I think we have to really begin to notice and teach children, I think your body needs to move right now, and not try to soothe when that's happening, because it's kind of like capping a volcano. You're just starting to do this whole thing, you know, and since children aren't getting outside as much and running and having big movements, I think we have to really add that in addition to, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I left my phone somewhere. Goodness. I'll get it. Can you edit this out?
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, I didn't want to.
We can cut
have that in there. Should I start that over?
Yeah, just start that bit over, and then we'll just cut it out.
Oh, that's that emergency test that was happening. You probably don't know about that.
Right. Or there's always something, every, okay. We've had dogs jump up.
So you want to ask me the question again?
So Lynea, you've had a lot of experience, many years working with children and children all around the world, I understand. And we have a lot of maybe newer teachers that are on this summit who are very interested in mindfulness, but maybe a bit hesitant because they think it's another thing that they need to do and they're already a bit overwhelmed, or they just don't know where to begin. So can you give some advice, some tips and pointers to teachers that might help them to see how they can use this in the classroom?
Yeah. So first I'd like to say that one of the things I think happens is that children come in and their nervous systems are already agitated. And you can start to feel the room vibrating a bit. When I was teaching kindergarten, I could feel when the whole room started to reach this point of like, whoa, something's going to happen, or they need to get out of here or something. And beginning to recognize it, even feeling it in your own body and trusting your body's instincts, because teachers are amazing. I mean, honestly, they're the most amazing people I know, because they're working with these beautiful little beings and they keep it all together. And sometimes I think we forget to trust those instincts, and we have to be reminded. Your body will know. So when you start to feel that, if you can begin to allow them to move, like go out on the playground or go into a big play area and get some big movement so they can release. Because I think sometimes we jump to soothe and mindfulness a little too soon. And if you jump to that before you allow the children to get out and play, then it's almost like capping a volcano. You're just trying to stop it, but it keeps trying to come out. And you might as well just allow that energy to be released. Let them be kids. Let them have fun, move, and then come back in and do the practice, the calming practices. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second is just to add, it's really helpful to do it in a routine. So the children begin to know, oh, every time we start out the day, we do a little breathing, maybe we do 2 yoga poses, something that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be my routine or someone else's routine. It could even be a mindfulness practice that they really like. I think teaching from ourselves is really important, you know. A mindfulness game can be helpful. There are lots of them in my book, and there are lots of people teaching them. So anything that resonates with you, I think that's really important. And then you do it at the same time every day. I really think the breathing is essential, doing some kind of breathing practice. I also like to get the children up leading. So with the Hoberman sphere, which you open and close, the children can begin to do that. And sometimes you have to help them at first, just like stand behind them and help them open it and close. But after a while, they can do that themselves, and that gives them a sense of it being their practice. And then we also just give a really simple compliment, like say, can somebody say one nice word to whoever led, and so that they're getting some, you know, they're being seen by the rest of the class. But I think it's really important to keep it simple, keep it in a routine, keep it structured. You know how children are, like, we do this right now. This is what we do right now. And they will tell you, oh, you forgot to do that. As a matter of fact, our granddaughter, when we first started doing it, after a while, she didn't want to breathe. And now she reminds us, we forgot to breathe. Because it's part of our practice. And it's such a simple, easy practice to add in.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Both of those points are so important. And I especially just want to talk about the first point again, where you said, because I think it's so important in early childhood that we don't keep these fixed timetables. I see a lot in schools that I work in, and be able to do that, you know, to say, yeah, you need to move right now. So we're not going to stay here. We're going to do some movement and then come back and start. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I wanted to talk to you now about your book, Good People Everywhere, which I mentioned I have read, and I love this storybook. It's a best-selling book. So congratulations on that. Tell us a little bit about why you wrote this book and anything else you want to share about it.
Well, the book was born when I took a trip to Nepal.
Okay.
And I went on a trek, a yoga trek, and I was terrified. I went by myself, and a lot of family members were worried for me and cautious. You're going alone. And so I was really frightened to go by myself about what I would encounter. And I got very sick. And up on the mountains, lying in front of this monastery, I had this realization that there were good people all along the way, and that I had been so worried about the bad people in the world that I was really moved. I mean, this one Sherpa, oh my gosh, I love the Sherpas. You've lived in Nepal?
No, my husband just came back from Nepal, actually. He was
Oh, the
a
people are
guest chef
so
there, but I haven't been.
generous and beautiful. And I mean, he carried me some of the
Wow.
time because I couldn't keep up with the group, and he'd stay with me, and he was the most patient. Talk about mindful, my goodness. The most amazing and patient person. It makes me want to cry just thinking about it because it was just so generous. His spirit was so generous, and we all felt that. They didn't have a lot to give, but they gave everything that they had. And I went home with this feeling of goodness about people. So that's where the seed started. And then I was working with students in my school, and they kept talking about the bad people in the world. And I said, why do you all think that there are so many bad people? And they watched the news. Well, it's true, Mrs. Gillen, it's true. There are more bad people. And I said, all right, I want you to look around and think about all the good people that are here right now in our building. Think about your moms, your dads, the teachers, the grocery store clerks. I was in a small town. And do you think the good people outnumber the bad people? And they were still so convinced that the bad people outnumbered the good people. And that made me really sad. So I created a relaxation journey. Good People Everywhere initially was a relaxation journey that I did at the end of my classes. And I would read it in my workshops with teachers, and they always asked for it and said they wanted to give it to their children. And so finally someone said, why don't you turn that into a book? So I did. And Christina Swarner, who's got amazing magical illustrations, illustrated it for me. And I'm really happy with the work she did and the way she illustrated it. And I've gotten such amazing messages, especially after big tragedies. I've gotten messages from parents or teachers saying my child went right to that book after that happened, and it's being used when there are floods and hurricanes and things like that, and that makes me feel really good. So it's been a nice book to put out in the world, and I just feel honored that I got to do it and that it's being used in that way.
Yeah, I love it. And as you said, it's so important to share that message, because I agree with you. There are so many good people all over the world. I mean,
aren't there? And you travel, so you see that too.
I've seen, people have helped me in so many countries and gone out of their way to do kind things. And
Yeah.
it's really, really important to let kids see that side as well, because as we know, the media likes to show the negative things. So we'll have a link to the book if anybody wants to order it. I highly recommend it. And I just wanted to mention the freebies that Lynea has put on. We have a 5-minute stress busting routine for kids that has a video as well. Lynea runs lots of online courses. And are the courses in person as well in different locations, or is it
There
all
are. We do one every summer. My husband at a beautiful retreat center in Portland. And we also have a trainer that does a lot in Minneapolis, in that area, and she travels sometimes. She takes people she went to Peru last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. With the group.
So there's a 10% off the online youth instructor certification course bundle on there. So just check out the Lynea speaker page on the summit, and all the information will be there. So check those out. So I just want to say thank you again, Lynea. It's been really interesting talking to you, and thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and wisdom with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.